Hello and welcome to the Who Dares Rolls review of the year of 2023. This is me and Ben, who I will introduce in a minute in the video, awkwardly, I believe, going through what we've played over the Friday nights, game nights, and some of Ben's perspective. Occasionally I let him talk. So that's what this is. It is a long video. It is an epic video. I did look about chopping it down to parts, but let's be honest, I don't know where to begin with that. So I thought, let's just let this out into the wild. So this is something you can savour maybe over a few nights, as we are looking at over an hour and a half's worth of nonsense here. And we will cover a bunch of games within. We'll pick some highlights of that, we'll pick some stuff that we didn't enjoy so much, and it will all be here for you to savour over an extended period of time. Or you could alternatively sit down and watch the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy in less time, I feel. But yeah, enjoy that. Indulge. Lovely. See you later. Hello, Ben. This is Ben from Friday Night Games.
Hello.
This is Ben. So yes, what we're going to be doing is, and part of series of videos which may have already or not happened, I will be catching up with the various party members of the various game nights, try to get an overview of what we have played this year. So we're going to do that now. This will be Friday Night Games. I have a list.
A chronological list?
No, well, it's in date order, and it's only based on the vague few things that I have tracked on Board Game Geek, which isn't many because I'm shit at doing that, and some random stuff that I went through my Google Images search to kind of piece together a through path of stuff. So if we can, we can go by month order if you want.
That probably seems the most logical.
Well, there we go. So in January, there was two main things stuck out in January. Was Frosthaven, which we aren't playing on Friday nights.
Nope.
I know you have a copy.
I have a copy, and it's just sitting on my shelf, and I have no idea if or when it'll ever get played.
I'll be honest with you. Don't worry.
I am seriously considering selling it. Maybe I hang on to it for 5 years and it's out of print and all of that.
Yeah, I
kind of
mean, you could probably quite easily spin it at this point. Frustration is what I'm now calling it at the moment. It's
okay.
Pissing me off. It's a load of work.
A lot more than Gloomhaven?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's using the app, using all the stuff, all the extras. I mean, it's lovely. I enjoy it. It's fun. Robbie very much loves it. But for me, it's turning into work. It's like, oh God, got to book him for my evening work. But the other big thing, anyway, for Frosthaven's that Frostpunk.
Yes.
Which I know that obviously that's a big one. We haven't played it for a while.
We haven't, but the last game I had was at CabineCon back in May, and I think out of all the games that we played this year, and perhaps out of all the games I've played, it is the most unique experience I've had playing a game.
Cool.
The game that we had at CabineCon, where we had proper time to breathe with it, so we lasted, I think, about 8 hours in that, whereas we can only do about 4 hours on a Friday night.
That's the problem.
When we could properly let it breathe, and we had proper collaborative discussions rather than the Friday night arguments and things like that. It was just completely different. So perhaps we should say a little bit about what the game is.
Yes.
It's set in a steampunk world, so early 20th century, and that it is a new ice age, basically. There have been generators set up across England. Most of them are broken. You are leading a group of people who have found a generator somewhere in the north of England, and you are trying to survive a number of turns to get that generator running, to keep people warm enough to gather the resources and to be able to survive.
Yeah. But the idea is, it's like This War of Mine, in that it is presenting you with choices to be made, which are not easy choices, and ultimately probably someone's going to suffer, and it's a case of who's going to suffer more. And more importantly, I quite like how it worked, and it did well. It's kind of a legacy-ish feel to it. There is repercussions to stuff that you make decisions with that can come back and bite you in the arse later.
Yeah, so you start with an event deck, and then as you go through, each day presents you with some kind of a dilemma. You make a decision that puts another card into the event deck that could come out at some point in the future. There are constantly these storytelling elements about the population that live with you. You have cards which have people's pictures and names on, so sometimes you have to sacrifice somebody on a particular mission or whatever, and it tries to involve you in these being real decisions that you're making about real people in some way. So it's trying to get the empathy going, that kind of a thing, which isn't something you often get coming across in board games.
No, I don't. I mean, I think This War of Mine is one I think of that has that kind of up front and centre. But yeah, other than that, that's probably the closest thing.
And it is a collaboration, I think, between the designers of This War Is Mine and Nemesis.
Yes. But yeah, Frostpunk, I really enjoy Frostpunk. It is one I think I mentioned in the video a little while ago that we hadn't played much of it since. I quite enjoyed what it was doing, but yeah, I would like to revisit it at some point because I thought it was kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, so it was alright on the Friday nights, but the problem is we are limited by the time we have to play it. So,
exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, that's definitely a good one. Right, well, that's January. That started well. Here for February is the Tapestry expansion came out.
Yep.
The I can't remember, Friends and Foes. No, it wasn't that. Something else. F's and F's. It was
Yes.
F and F.
I can't remember either.
No, I can't remember either. Anyway, that came out. I quite enjoyed that. It came in an envelope. It was mainly just a bunch of cards, which is kind of cool. Sometimes expansions, I think, just give me more content. And that predominantly added the charms on the Tapestry cards, which were cards that then had actions that, if you played them before or after certain cards, triggered an extra bonus for you. Just a bit more stuff, a bit more business going on, and a load of more factions.
Yeah.
And location mats. So just more stuff, which I like about an expansion. It's just more stuff.
Yeah, rather than necessarily trying to add a new element to the game that changes it in some way, which can make it then feel like it's too much.
Yeah, just a little...
some different options.
I like that, and I still continue to enjoy Tapestry. It is random, it is a bit crazy, but I kind of like all that.
Yeah, and you've played it more than I have, but I suppose I less. With the other expansions that have come along as well, when we added this one in, I couldn't properly remember the previous expansion, so there was a lot more new stuff going on with it.
I do find the new expansion does really kind of all the factions, all the stuff. Not
Arts
so much
and architecture, isn't it?
That was one before.
Okay. Oh, so you're talking about this year?
I'm talking about the last final one.
Yeah.
There was 3 expansions. So there's the one that adds the arts board, which is a nice touch, nice thing. I don't know if that was first or second. I think it was the second. Then there was the one arts and architecture. I can't fucking remember. No, that is arts and architecture. Jesus Christ.
That adds the 5th track, doesn't it? But I think there's one last Tapestry thing being released this
I thought
year.
he said he was done. I thought that was it.
No. The one last thing is a revised rulebook with all the adjustments to the factions. And I think it might have some replacement faction cards that they're printed on it, so that you don't have to then go and check on the back of the rulebook to make sure you've got
really much of a challenge, because the last expansion brought out like a one rulebook where everything combined in, which was nice, and I found that more than satisfying. And on the back page of that, I think it's got the
but factions. Now there's more factions from that one as well.
So they've patched the factions from that. Anyway.
That's probably the biggest complaint with that, actually, is the fact that they have had to patch it as they've gone along. There are so many factions trying to balance everything out. There's just that little bit of extra overhead in the setup of, what it says on your card, well, now do this differently.
But there's usually a minor adjustment.
Yeah.
We get around it. I like the crazy of it, to be fair. That's always what attracted me to it, was that it was a little bit way and a bit mad. I'm quite happy to have a bit of the madness. So anyway, that was February, which was that. March, we Vita Lasada kind of hit us hard over March, April-ish time, because we've got Escape Plan definitely around about that time, and On Mars are 2 that bounce out at me. I don't think I ever played Lisboa. You played that, I think.
I've played the Gallerist.
Oh, that's it.
And you have missed off that list Kanban EV.
Oh yeah, I have.
So
yes.
I think that the timing might be off on this. So yes, Escape Plan I really like.
I really like Escape Plan. That's my favourite of Lasada's.
And it's weird because there are lots and lots of little bits to it, but it all plays really smoothly and intuitively.
Exactly. The theme works. It works with the theme, which is really nice in the Euro, because you don't get that all the time. And it actually smoothly works, and you can get into the theme, and it's kind of that. It's a little bit of Martin Wallace-y crossover from Euro into a little bit more kind of other game going on.
So again, a little bit about what it is.
Oh yeah.
You're a bunch of thieves. The net is closing in on you. You've all stashed money around the city. Get as much money as you can and get out of the city before the police catch up with you.
That's pretty much it. It's got a nice lot of take that elements in it, which is nice. The idea is, you've got this ticking clock of when the exit will eventually become available to you. You don't know. There's 4 exits at the start, and only one of them is going to be valid. There's also a point that once someone does escape, so we'll push your luck time. Once someone escapes, it starts really cranking the pressure, because then the price to get out is rising and the window of opportunity is closing. So it's like, do you make that one last gasp, grab the thing, run? Escape Plan, if I was going to pick up one of the Sadas, that'd be it. I find everything else, increments of just too much going on to really...
See, I kind of disagree with Kanban. I think Kanban is pretty streamlined. I think that the real problem for you, and it's something we'll talk about with another game later on, is you don't give a shit about the theme.
Yeah, that might be. I mean, Kanban, yes. I suppose. I just think, like, even on Mars, I liked kind of what On Mars is doing, and Kanban, to a point. They're doing similar variations on this. You're finding different engines. There's loads of like little bits you're trying to find the jigsaw to fit it all together. And I think, for me, there's a game later on in the year we're going to discuss what takes a lot of that, but makes it not quite as Lasada-y, but still delivers to me personally that feel of little bits and pieces going all over the board and something to tickle my brain. I find some of that stuff is just, I don't know, maybe the theme, maybe I'm not engaging, but on Mars, I like space stuff. I don't mind it.
I think On Mars is a bit more complex, and I don't think we quite played it enough to really crack it. I do have the expansion with that, but we haven't played that yet. I would quite like to get it back to the table, but it's a bit trickier to get your head around. Kanban is very streamlined. It's a Euro, you've got 5 places that you can put your worker, and that's it, basically. You're going backwards and forwards, and it's just how can you get your engine running. It's very streamlined and very simple, and I think there it probably is the theme, whereas On Mars is more intricate, and there's no obvious route or way to streamline it.
It's a bit muddied of, like, where am I going with this? I mean, I don't mind them. I agree with what we said. Escape Plan, by me, stands out far ahead and shoulders above all the rest of them, because it just hits the sweet spot between the complexity, the theme, the fun, and still kind of getting a nice burn, but actually a really satisfying play. And that's the one that I'm like, that does it.
And I think before the last time we played it, you were still singing its praises and also admitting that you were always 4th or 5th.
Oh yeah, I did.
But then last time we played, I think you did win. You win or came second by
close.
a couple of... Maybe by a couple of thousand.
But I do enjoy it. I don't mind. I'm never one to be like, I don't give a shit if I win or lose, to be fair, most of the time. Unless I'm playing against Bob, maybe. but yeah, most of the time I'm just there for as long as I enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
I think it's the key thing on that. And I have enjoyed the journey on some of them. No Thanks is the other thing that I've got No Thanks there, which has seen a lot of time. I think it's been usurped a little bit later in the year by another card game.
Yep.
But No Thanks, I've enjoyed that. It's still on I picked it up after we played it. I thought it was really good. For the value of it, it's about 10, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, something like that.
It's an absolute no-brainer.
I mean, it's, what is it, 35 cards and about 60
plastic
minstrels.
Yes, tiddlywinks. April, there's a couple of big ones here I've got listed here. Is Food Chain Magnet.
Yep.
We didn't play the Word Walk-Off board game we played here. And Heat is making its potentially first appearance on our list.
Yeah,
sounds about right, because we were late to Heat. You picked it up.
Yeah,
it was sold out originally, didn't it?
Yes.
So Food Chain Magnet, I've had a journey. Me and Food Chain Magnet have gone on a journey together. I don't get me wrong, I enjoy Food Chain Magnet, and it's vicious. It's a viciously brutal game.
Yeah, depending upon your opponents, you can't.
Well, you can't.
You can get you can't. You've got. It's like Agricola.
Yeah.
You've just got to hit every point right, unless everybody else is making mistakes around you.
Although, having said that, the last game we played, when you again had pretty much now ding 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 to the guru, and I was like, fuck, I'm not going to catch that. And then in that one round, you'd missed the step to have everything to be able to sell the products. And Bob, that was luck.
Yeah, and Bob had the guru as well, so he could do the same amount of training. So then it came down to between the two of us, and Bob could get that little bit of runaway. Yeah. But what I like, I suppose, because it's a weird game, unlike any other game, when you're laying out your tableau of employees and what they're going to do. And I like the fact that it is weird and different from everything else that we'll play, and I quite like the fact that it's so swingy, and actually you don't know until the last turn kind of who's going to come out and win it.
I mean, it does a lot of stuff that I enjoy. It's got viciousness, it's got the opportunity to fuck people over, which I always enjoy in a game.
Unless it's you.
I think the issue is, well, I had a bad week, I feel. That's the only thing. But yeah, I mean, as we know, I table flipped on this one. And I think that's the problem with it, is like the night where I went, fuck, is that I already could see that there was no conceivable fucking hope in hell that I was ever crawling out of the hole I was in. Robbie was in a similar situation, but didn't understand it until the next round after he'd been punched in the face. They was like, oh, which I still annoyed. Robbie's the only one who tipped the game. You were still playing at that point. I'd stepped back and said, no, carry on. Robbie's the one who fucking threw the game at that point. I was like, yes. But yes, Food Chain Magnet, I do enjoy it. It's one I love to hate. You've got the expansion coming.
Hopefully. Yeah, they're reprinting it this quarter. So
you didn't back it on GameFan?
No, I didn't quite want to remortgage the house.
No, I think it was a missed opportunity, that one. I do feel, but I haven't picked it up yet. It's one I've toyed with. I've toyed upon it on my birthday list, but I think almost in some ways, I don't know what the Sunday crowd would do. It would be brutal, I feel. But it's something. It's nice to kind of, when it comes out, is to play it and enjoy it. I think, because I don't know how often I would get it to the table.
Yeah.
But I like some of what it's doing. But the caveat that with it is a vicious game.
Yeah, and if you wanted to play it on a Sunday, you can always borrow it.
Well, yeah. There's always that. WoW ball game we never played. Heat, however, we can touch on. I mean, that was the darling of whenever I don't know when it actually came out.
I think it was November of
You might be right.
Of 2022.
Oh,
Here we go.
There we go. There's Heat. The Days of Wonder. Lovely Vincent Dutray art. I love a bit of Vincent. He actually designed it. It was old Asghar Harding who did Farm Rouge.
Yes.
And it very much takes a lot of the Farm Rouge bits. That's probably more sensible.
Ever the pro.
Heat, racing game.
Yep.
I mean, I don't mind a racing game. I quite enjoyed Farm Rouge. I played a lot of and have all of Downforce was one I enjoyed. It's not, I mean, technically it's a different thing, but I like Downforce in that it's thrown to the table better to play a racing game without much effort. It's fun. This kind of straddles that with the Farm Rouge element. It's got a bit more strategic thinking going on in it.
Yeah, and I like that. So it comes with 4 different tracks to race, and set up for a number of different seasons, which introduce additional rules to certain tracks and things like that. You get improvements to your car, so you can upgrade it from race to race, all of those kind of things, which makes it quite interesting. It means that you start to diverge from everybody else around the table about what your car can do compared to theirs. And I'm not a big fan of kind of the Destruction Derby type car games. I'm trying to think what you've got a couple
you said
of them.
that, and I'm just trying to think what they are.
But I'll go for a straight out race, absolutely. In that kind of race scenario, get from point A to point B. I don't like the fact that somebody can fuck me over. Yeah, and it's nothing to do with me.
I understand what you're. I mean, I don't need any help playing. I mean, I'll be honest. I am terrible at this game. Absolutely fucking terrible at it. I enjoy it. It's not one that's grabbed me wholeheartedly. And I don't know what it is about it, because I like a racing game. It's got some interesting mechanisms going on. It's giving you lots of control over your card play, and that's the card play is really nice, how you work out when to push your luck and what to do. I tend to just fuck around and blow my car up most races we have. But yeah, they're doing expansion, isn't it, coming out?
I think Heavy Rain. There's not a Board Game Geek page for it yet. I know that much. So it's not that imminent, but Easter kind of time I think is what's mooted. It'll have a couple more tracks. It'll have some addition. There'll probably be an additional season that you can run, things like that.
I've been tempted to dig up Formula Day because I haven't played that for ages, but that's mainly random dice rolling. But racing game, we should do that more because Bob loves a racing game.
Yep.
So we should probably play more racing games just to keep him happy. But yeah, Heat. I don't mind. It's on there. Now, next one, May. I've only got one game on here for May. There may be more, but this is a big one. It's a big one for me. Scarface, 1920.
Yep.
I enjoyed that. We can play more.
I kind of enjoyed it, but I've also backed the expansion, which is due in the next couple of months, I think,
Cool.
which introduces 2 new gangs. So it's Scarface 1920. It's dealing arms and dealing alcohol.
It's kind of a little bit of Godfather. It's a little bit Sons of Anarchy. It's a little bit of all those mobster games, but kind of with its own spin, and kind of a bit meatier than both.
Yeah, the issue that I kind of had was I felt that there was a particular route that didn't encourage combat, that you could just go down and you can really streamline what you're doing in your turns and maximise the money you're doing, and actually it becomes not particularly fun because you're just doing a production line of the same thing over and over again and making money. And I think that the expansion is going to change some of those dynamics, because one, there'll be potentially more gangs on the streets trying to control the city.
Cool.
But also I think that they encourage a lot more fighting with everybody.
Right. Yeah, because it didn't have it. You could take the path of least resistance with it, I guess. What you say. I mean, we've only played three
times.
And to be fair, each time I've played it, I think I've had one of, because they're asynchronous powers.
Yeah.
And I think I've had a different power every time. And whilst I focus on that, they've also steered me to focus on one of the different mechanisms of the game. So one game I think I really went on all the cards and how they did stuff, and another game I went something else. So I've kind of just been playing with it and toying and pulling on strings on it. I like all of what it's doing, and it's meatier of those other games. Godfather's a very lean game. I think Godfather, essentially they're both doing the same thing. Godfather presents you a very lean, streamlined version of that. This is the big, I use bloated, not meaning it necessarily in a physical way, that big kind of fat Kickstarter-y feel of that game. And some of it feels a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too bloated and big, but then I quite like it, all the ugly spots and all.
Yeah, I think so. The last time we played, so one of the mechanisms in it is that there are a certain number of days, and after once a number of days have happened, then the game is over, essentially.
Yes, essentially.
And you move the time marker along by completing your deck. So it's not. So every time you take a turn out to shuffle your deck and deal yourself a new hand, you move the marker along.
Yes.
Which means that if somebody's not buying cards, not bloating their deck up, they get through their deck really quickly.
Which I think happened.
That's what Bob was doing, and he had streamlined. If I just do this, I make money, and money is the aim of the game. And we were trying to do the interactive things, and then buying cards and taking much more time over everything that we were doing. And then it was like, I'm set up to do stuff. The game's finished.
Yeah, no, I'm with what you're saying. Yes.
So that was what was problematic. There was nothing that was incentivising Bob to buy cards and do stuff.
No.
He was just going, I can do this and I can win.
We should have fucked with Bob. We need future efforts. We need to just be like, well, hold on a minute. Well, let's just clearly go and just fuck with Bob.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the problem is, I would have probably fucked with Bob had all those 3 games is very much like a learning game.
Yeah.
It's been going down a different avenue of what it offers to get that feel for all of it, which now I'll be honest with you, I've probably forgotten most of it. But yeah, I love a gangsters, I love a gangster movie, I love The Godfather, I love all that stuff, and this is doing that cool sweet spot for me of all that good stuff. But it is a monster. I will be interested to see what we play 5-player with the expansion as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there are certainly 6 gangs that you can have then. I don't know that you can get all 6 on the table. But I don't think we would very rarely have 6 anyway.
No, but we might do the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I had there in May. In June, which is coming up to the Expo each time, I had After Us, so I must pick that. I picked that up at the Expo, which is the monkey card game.
Oh, yes.
I buried it under about 4 or 5 boxes, so I'm not going to fucking pull that out of there. I quite enjoy it. It's a jolt of an engine builder. It has got a touch of random because you're just pulling random cards, but it is very quick, very fast, and for that, I like it's a game that you're building a tableau of cards in front of you where they all kind of link up boxes that then kind of generate you stuff. And I like that sort of puzzle, and I like what it does, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. It can be done and done in about 40 minutes maybe if there's 4 or 5 of you.
So that was one that you played a couple of times, I think, when I was away on holiday.
Yes.
And then I came back and you guys were like, let's play the monkey one. And I'm like, what the fuck
is
are
the
you
monkey
talking about? And so you then kind of had to talk me through it. What I found interesting, because it's very much, you build your own board with different effects that you can get in different ways. But I don't know whether this says something about me or says something about the other people that we play games with, you just let everybody do what they were doing and trusted that they were doing the right stuff.
Well, yes.
I was less comfortable with the idea that they were always getting it right.
I understand what you're saying, especially with some of the people at the table we're playing with. I mean, Robbie, I don't trust as far as I can fucking throw him. And so, yes, and he does win a lot of those type of games quite regularly.
Yeah, there will often be that, oh, I forgot to do this, takes 12 more resources.
Yeah, I mean, if that's it, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I quite enjoy the thing and I enjoy what I'm doing, but then I'm blissfully unaware of what shit is going on.
It's not a complaint about the game.
No.
That's about our
I think the complaint about the game that Jamie raised it, and I agree with him, is there's no interaction. Absolutely zero, other bar than you're borrowing a power once per round off a neighbour if they've played it.
I guess but the thing that I would perhaps liken it to in that way is Imperial Settlers.
Yeah, it is a very fast, quick means.
Yes,
yeah.
Compared to Imperial Settlers.
We have now got Imperial Miners, which we'll speak about later, I'm sure, which kind of does that thing as well. I quite like that. Similar critique, there's not much to do between you all. The only other thing we played around about then was Thunder Road, which I know you were thrilled to play. Tony backed Thunder Road. It came. I bought it, I think, 1 week because Bob likes a car game. Very much random fest. Post-apocalyptic, based on a 1980s board game, which I vaguely remember. It's nothing more than rolling dice, driving down the track, and shit happening. And which is all in your wheelhouse. And stuff you love.
Yes, I love randomness. I love the things that I can't control in any way, shape, or form. Can't anticipate. Can't do anything about it.
Worst fucking nightmare. There was a game we played of it here one night where I just randomly laid out the boards, and none of us survived. Or was it on a Friday? I can't remember. None of us survived the first board. It killed everyone. So yeah, Thunder Road. Yeah, I love it for its crazy. I appreciate that. Not so high on your list of things to be doing. Expeditions.
Yes.
Which was my big release this year before the other one came out later on in the year.
Yep. So this was Jamie's design this year.
Yes.
The other one is not his design.
This is kind of a sequel to Scythe, sort of.
Yes. So it lives in the same universe as Scythe.
Yes. Same sort of idea. I mean, it's tiles on the board. You're going around. It's like a worker placement, but the tiles you put your mech on, give you an ability of power. There's lots of random multi-use cards that you're collecting to open and lock, do stuff on your board. It's kind of it vibes Scythe in its mechanisms and stuff, but it isn't quite. It's kind of like a side cool to it.
Yeah, it's a Scythe Junior in a way.
Yeah.
Not My Little Scythe, but
no.
But in terms of complexity and speed of play and all of that kind of stuff, you're not going to really get analysis paralysis playing it. Whereas with Scythe, certainly with newer players, they can just freeze with the options. Whereas this is much more streamlined.
We played it about 3 or 4 times on the trot, I think. When we first played. I quite enjoyed it. I think I called on it afterwards. It's not one that has left me going, oh, I want to play it again. I'd play it happily if it appeared, because I go, oh, that, yes, I'll play that. I think I'm still left with, I feel that it's one expansion way for something coming into it to do, because it just feels like there's something, it's good. I love all the connected bits. Seems to be a connective piece of tissue missing to kind of really poof.
I think my thing would be, and this is a thing that I have with a number of Jamie's games, that they're a race to an arbitrary point.
Yeah. Which is Scythe suffers from the same problem.
The end feels very anticlimactic.
Considering all the world building, like Scythe, all the world building going into that, all the aesthetics, all the art, the design, all that gorgeousness, and ultimately it comes down to if you got 10 stars. It kind of just abruptly ends.
And somebody can not exactly spring it on you. You can only claim 1 star per turn. You've got to get to 4. But so you can see when somebody's on 3 and they've got a turn where they could get to the place where they can then boast to get their final star. So you can anticipate it, but it just kind of feels like, oh, that's it.
It can race to that last finish quite quick, I found. But I am with you, and I say that was the same problem. I think one of the issues I was Scythe was ultimately it did all the good work it did building you into that. Ultimately was poof. 10 stars. I mean, even the Fenris, we played the Rise of Fenris campaign with Scythe, which was okay, but again, it still ultimately had the.
We haven't got it to the table since we played that.
No, we haven't. I mean, as I say, I'm not a massive big Scythe fan because ultimately I think I wanted what it wasn't ever offering.
You wanted the 4th X.
Yeah, and it didn't, and I think it always felt it penalised you actually for trying to have a fight.
Yeah.
But I go knock it. I mean, and other than it magpied a lot of good mechanisms. So like the player boards from Terra Mystica, I loved that mechanism when I first played Terra Mystica. I adored that, and it's in there in front and centre of Scythe, and it's great. But there's nothing terribly innovative going on there. It's borrowing some very good stuff from other games and combining them into a very good game. But yeah, anyway, that's Scythe. Expeditions, I don't have an issue with it. I came very close. The first couple of times we had of it, of like going, I think I might have to order that. And then I kind of called on it. So
we'll see what happens. There's obviously an expansion coming.
I'm sure there was going to be
so we'll see whether that introduces something, some new aspect.
Yeah, I just think, I don't know. I enjoy it. It's not terrible. It's a solid game, and I love a lot what it's doing. It just ultimately left me going a little hollow. Whereas Weather Machine.
Yeah. So this was. I have a list of. Rather than going what we played throughout the year, I did my best games of the year, and there is one entry under the worst, which was Weather Machine. Which
is damning at many levels, because you are the king of what I would call as a spreadsheet game. You love a spreadsheet game, a Euro, and the meatier and the better you are. That's your jam.
We will come back to spreadsheets later.
We will, I'm sure. So yes, Weather Machine you would think was
and. One of the things about Lacerda's games, they're typically paired up with Ian O'Toole, the artist.
Who is a talented graphic designer.
Who streamlines the boards really, really well to make it easy to understand what you're doing and how things link together and so on and so forth.
Sweet. You pass everything at a glance. It's like...
And this board felt like a mess. Like, there's a lot of detail in the art that's just background stuff, which makes it then very difficult to pick out the icons that are on there, the spaces and how things link together. And it just didn't feel like there was an intuitive flow.
There was also a use of an iconography of the cogs. I think that I may be wrong. I thought ultimately we thought meant something, and it was just an aesthetic choice. And you were like, well, why would you choose a thing that's an icon on another bit of the board to be just an aesthetic choice? Although we may have got that wrong, because I know even after the last play, we were like, hold on a minute, this is a fucking thing. I mean, this is a game that comes with a fucking volume of player AI.
Yeah, so that was the first thing I noticed when I opened it. Normally you get maybe a two-sided card that will give you the icons just as a quick reference guide. This is an 8-page booklet for each player to refer to.
I remember filming it. I think it's on one of the early videos of me flicking through the player guide. It's like, what the fuck?
So...
I mean, it's Ultimate Lasada. It is like a different... stages of the game, a whole different mathematic puzzles and equations to kind of work out, to then link it together into that bit. It just was, fuck me, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, so I'm now trying to get rid of my if I've not put you off, feel free to comment underneath and we can work out a deal.
We can do your deal. I remember we played that last game and you were like, that's not going to play again, let's get started.
I mean, the thing is, even if I really liked the game, I wouldn't get it back to the table here, would I?
I think you'd struggle. Bob, I think, had tuned out. I mean, I'm always willing to get my teeth into something, and ultimately, I was happy to get it and play it again and go, but I was left going, fucking hell, that was a lot of I'm hurt, and I'm like, have I gained any pleasure? And ultimately, I think I mentioned before, it's just this very complex mathematical puzzle that you're ultimately just using to transfer these amount of points into those amount of points. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just, it's like algebra, the game, but like less fun. Bob was just angry that the female listened.
Yeah, there was that as well.
Like, well, so Weather Machine, not a roaring success then. Next August, I only have tagged here as Resicana and Blood Rage, so we'll skip through them. But Resicana, I will say, an absolutely fucking stonking game.
Yep.
I just recommend you just own it in your collection because I fucking love it. It's really good. Gets played a lot.
I introduced it at CabanCon this year. I was surprised that nobody else had brought it.
It's very much, it feels like a sleeper hit out there. When I remember when I got whiff of it, and I was like a year or two ago, and people had said about it. I saw it cheap, and I was like, oh, well, I'll take a punt. And I was like, this is fucking amazing. Tom Lehman, the designer of Race for the Galaxy, so it should really have been expected.
But I suppose the important thing to say about that, we won't dwell on it for too long, but the important thing to say is that there's a new expansion due this year.
Oh yes, there is. Yes, the final. I think it's the final. I don't know how it's going to fit in there, but we should wait and see. August. No, I've done August. September. Scout. Scout is the big boy here, really. We had freelancers I'll come back to, but Scout. Now, we have to fence you up and sit down for this, really, don't we?
Yep, absolutely.
Because they went, this is really fucking good. And then you went, I've heard this is really fucking good. And you got it and we played it and went, this is really fucking good.
Yeah, and we played it every week for like half the night every week.
Yes.
So normally we have half an hour at the end of games to play something.
Do something small.
And we were typically trying to get an hour and a half at the end of the night so that we could just play it again and again and again.
And I subsequently bought a copy. We did the same on Sunday nights. Then Tony bought a copy. So, I mean, it's one. I mean, there is a theme there. And I think we've all come to the conclusion that it's utterly irrelevant. Number one, I think it's really ultimately what it should have been themed around. But ignore that. It's just as a card game that you can play 2 muggles to quite a place up to 5.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, covers quite a word base. You can pull that out with a bunch of, as I say, people don't play.
If people can play Uno and stuff like that, they'll be able to play this.
This should be selling gangbusters over Uno, because Uno's a piece of shit.
I did see it in Waterstones just before Christmas, so it is getting some mainstream exposure.
Aside from the fucking fee, my only other critique is it's quite expensive for what it is.
Yes.
But the sleeve of the cards is a nightmare and blah blah blah. But all that aside, it is. If it was cheaper, you could just keep buying copies and playing it and killing it.
And the amount that you're going to play it, you're going to want to sleeve it.
Yes, you are. But yeah, a cracker. Absolute cracker. Freelancers I'll touch on. We played, which is the Plaid Hat Games Crossroad game set in the bit economy. We only played it a couple of times.
Yep.
I quite enjoyed what it was doing. I enjoyed the pirate game we played before off the same sort of thing. I quite liked the jokiness. It was quite humorous.
Yeah, so I think I'm opposed, generally speaking, to app-based games.
Yes.
They've done a really good job with this one. The script and the acting for it is brilliant. Really, really well done. Genuine laugh-out-loud moments listening to it. That was the one that asked you, do you want friendly language or something like that. Yeah, so you could, basically, I think that then it gave you a slightly branching storyline in which there were double entendres.
Yes, like innuendos.
Yeah, there wasn't actual swearing.
No, but it was. If you were there and you caught it, you were like, "Oh, that was rude."
Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't think the game itself is that great, but when you combine it with that effectively as an interactive story, that's what is good about it.
I like it that it can give you that kind of play an RPG session, but in an evening. Kind of, you'll end up with a character. You can get into vibe that as little as you want, but as you say, it does a lot of heavy lifting with the plot and the script, the characters, and it kind of carries you along with this deranged story. Very Adventure Timey vibes to it. I think it's pretty. I like Plaid Hat stuff. I think my only critique is I love Dead of Winter, that original Crossroads game, and I love that mechanism of that card deck and how it would fuck with the game and change things and cause things unexpectedly to happen, and that kind of ultimately never paid off that really good start with that series.
Yeah.
This is a Crossroads game. It's all app based, so you don't quite get the buzz of that Crossroads moment happening. But yeah, I quite enjoy what it's doing. October. Robbie bought Descent.
Yes.
Once.
Twice.
Oh, twice. Yes.
And has been trying to get it back to the table since then.
Well, he wasn't about selling it.
Oh, was he? I think that might have been the mutual response, because he mentioned it. It was my birthday weekend. There was 4 of us.
Yes.
And he said, "Oh, Descent," and I went, "Great." And I put a gif of "Yay," something like that.
I will be honest. I mean, he got it at a good price. The whole thing was he was going to bring that to a Friday night because Bob wanted something with dice in it. So and originally the whole pretense was nights when you weren't there, it would be an alternative where we would all play, and I knew it's not your jam really. I thought all that, and then the whole thing. Robbie was like, "Well, you do Frosthaven when we play it. I'll do this." Well, he can't even fucking do this, and it's doing 99% of all the heavy lifting on bar. Oh, his only issue is he can't be asked to pull scenery out of a fucking box. I think it felt more app than game.
Yeah, it's
I mean, we won't touch long on this.
There are a few things. I think it relates to freelancers.
Yes.
In as much as it is app-based when you're doing stuff.
Freelancers does a fucking better job.
There is a lot of reading to do with Descent.
Yes.
And so you're constantly looking on your screen, trying to crane your neck and read all this text out.
Yeah.
Somebody gets that job of just talking the whole
You're
night
the
through.
narrator for the
Yeah. Whereas freelancers, great voice acting, great scripts,
Yes.
does that really well.
Smaller
And
company.
playing it shortly after freelancers, it was a real come down on that front.
Yes, I would say that. You're right. Yes.
And then you're right. So when you want to fight a monster, so it's a dungeon crawler. You've got your map out on the board. You're moving your pieces around. You're showing what's there. But then any time you want to attack something, you have to draw it on the screen. You're doing all of these actions. I'm now opening that bookcase. Whatever it might be. You're doing all of that on the screen rather than on the elaborate thing that you've spent half an hour constructing on the table in front of you. Because
it's kind of mirroring a lot of what Manchester Madness did. And I think Manchester Madness does a very similar thing to this, but does it better, I think, because I don't think it has that abundance of ridiculous amount of building a dungeon in front of you. It doesn't have that, but it does a really good job of having that interaction at the leaner end of it, which works with Manchester Madness. Whereas, yes, Descent feels... you're having this big RPG and you say these moments where you're having these cutscenes and you just sat there reading for 10, 20 minutes or whatever the fuck's going on, and ultimately, are you engaged? Probably not. No one's really listening, are they?
No.
And it depends if anyone's really putting their oar into those cutscenes, this isn't going to matter. But yeah, so...
And then likewise, so when we've played the original Descent, and,
yes.
Also there's the Star Wars one, which is which is basically the same mechanism.
Yeah.
When we played those, you've got your cards that you're upgrading your characters with. Again, on this, you're doing it all on the app.
Yeah.
As to, I'm now going to this shop and what do I buy here? It seems like it's automated in that way because you can do more complex constructions. You can get these different ingredients, combine them to get a thing, which you then have to find the card for. But it feels like that's just too involved for this type of game. Like which
will bring me back to Frosthaven, actually, because Frosthaven is also doing all of that,
right,
but obviously without the fucking app.
Yeah.
So that is, I am the app. So there is all those ingredients. There is all this colony building in Frosthaven, going back to Frosthaven. There's all this abundance of stuff that I was like, oh, that is evoking all the cool stuff from those games. But it means that some poor fucker is doing all that work.
Yeah.
In my case, that is me. I've been relegated on our Sunday evenings to a fucking app. So yeah, anyway, so that's that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse is the other one we played, which I know is not your jam.
It's still quite good fun.
I'm going to say, I mean, it's there. I mean, for 25 fucking quid, which is what I paid for that from H&B, which was an exclusive H&B. It's from Possible Horde Design, who do some really good... Funko published this. I think for capturing the theme of the movie, the aesthetics of the movie, they fucking knock it out of the park. Especially at such a cheap price. That's cheaper than a fucking pizza.
Yeah, so certainly it used to be, and the same went in video games as well.
Yes.
When you did tie-in games with movies, particularly with video games, it was just let's stick this logo on it, like the infamous E.T. from the 80s would be the classic one of that, where there are 500,000 in a landfill somewhere.
Yes.
And so people wouldn't bother making a game because they're just selling it on the basis of the name that's on the front of it,
like the multiple monopolies.
Yeah,
monopolies. Yes.
And this, and something that we will talk about later that I brought along that isn't on your list.
Yes.
They've come up with really interesting game designs, or if not interesting, at least ones that work and that provide a good experience.
A lot of time as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they did Frostball Hall. I mean, prior to them, I think Gale Force 9 would rise in my list of those guys that got licenses that actually really did justice. They did Spartacus. I think they nailed that with that. Sons of Anarchy. They were really putting out licensed games that, as you say, were a decent game. And Frostball Hall have really gone forward. They did Jaws. They've done this. I'm trying to think. They've done a bunch. Back to the Future. They've done nearly always the whole quality, the aesthetics of the whole thing, and the gameplay. Poof, it really works. And this is a home run for me. The only downside I say is it was exclusive to H&B, and I believe it's sold out.
Right.
But if you can get it, and you're a fan of that, highly recommended by me. And you even enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'll beat it again because it is very quick and easy.
Yeah. I mean, and let's be honest, if it was a 3-hour game, then it would probably lose me.
Oh yeah, but that's like a
45 minutes.
Yeah, it's fast, one and done, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Apiary. Dun dun dun. Space Bees. Stonemeyer's other game this year.
Yep, but not Jamie's.
Well, not Jamie's. This was Connie Vogelman, I want to say.
Yes.
Nailed it. I'm not going to pronounce Koichi Maya. Sorry, Koichi.
Kwanchai Moriya. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, fine, there we go. Somewhere in between that, we may have got it right. Yes. Connie Vogelman, her first design, Space Bees, Apiary. Earlier on, I alluded to a game that I felt hit that Lasada vibe of all those mechanisms being tied together into a neat bow, if you could find the path through the game. I was thinking of this, because for me, this does a lot of what a Mars does a lot of, maybe a little bit of what Cban's doing, definitely a Mars-id vibes from, and other that Lasada games, but in a much simpler, easier, simple thing to get your head around, but still with meat to it.
So, this isn't a criticism of Apiary at all, because I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think it works really well at the table. It's one that is simple enough for your less advanced players to be able to catch on, but deep enough that experienced players are going to get enough out of it. So really well balanced in that respect. I don't quite see the Lacerda thing, in as much as when I think of the best of Lacerdas, there's often a natural flow. You do this to do this, you do that to do that, and it takes you around step by step. This doesn't quite do that. It's not, the section in the top left-hand corner, you don't do that to enable you to do the next one necessarily. It doesn't quite have that natural flow to it when you hit all the sweet spots in a row like you really wanted to. But like I say, I don't think that's what the game is quite trying to do. I think it's got enough varied actions in there. I think that there's enough competitiveness of, oh, you bastard, you took that spot, I was going to do that on my... those kind of things which are, nice. So you've got to constantly adapt your gameplay according to what other people have decided to do.
Although you can bump workers, which is a callback to...
but you've taken that tile.
But there is... It's got the bump, so you're never out of doing something, but there is, as you say, there is that you could lose out if you... And I do it all the time to Robbie, apparently.
That's not just in this game.
No, every game. Every single fucking game.
But yeah, no, it works. It works really well. And yeah, it's been easy to get to the table, and there's been no complaints at all when it's come back to the table.
Don't think there is. I mean,
you played it 3 or 4 weeks ago.
You bought it. We played it a couple of weeks in a row. I was like, I like that, and I went and ordered a copy as soon as I think it hit the retail place. I picked it up reasonable, and I was like, yes, I really fucking enjoy what it's doing. It's not doing anything new. It's not doing anything revolutionary, I don't think, in its mechanisms of what it's doing, but what it's doing, and more importantly, I think the variety it offers in that box. I've lamented a couple of times in videos that it is a complete package. It doesn't actually leave me going, if we had an expansion.
Yeah.
It doesn't need anything. Yes, they're always nice, and I think if this had an expansion, I would like to see one of those, just more of.
Yeah, but even then, in those 4 plays that we've got out of it, there are 20-25 different factions, and we've not got through all those factions, and there's enough variety in that. I genuinely don't think you need to add anything to it. I'd be kind of disappointed if they announced an expansion in a way.
But I fucking love it. I think it's really good. I mean, some people were slating on it, but I think it's really good. It is just sweet spot for me. It presents me a puzzle that I have to wind my route through, depending on what faction I've got on the board I've got, find the sweet spot and just go for the points. And it's fast. Again, it's got that. If once someone has started to tear through stuff, the game rockets along. It doesn't outstay its welcome.
No.
And as you said, we've bought it a few times and it's been very popular.
Yep.
Love it. Love a bit of apiary. Zuvardis. It's chaps it down, isn't it? Again, there we go. Fuckers.
So, a negotiation game. It's a relatively simple board. It'll play in half an hour.
Reiner Knizia.
Yes, originally Quo Vadis from 1992, I think. And there's a really, really good designer's diary on Board Game Geek that I recommend people read, taking you through why they wanted to do this in the first place, how they came up with the changes that they made. So originally it was about senators in ancient Rome trying to get their path to becoming Caesar. This is now about animals wanting to be the star exhibit in a zoo. I don't know. Does it really matter?
I mean, to be fair, it kind of... Knizia, his designs, he does a lot of them. I mean, he's the Stephen King of full game designers. But yeah, he wanks stuff out. That was not quite the word I wanted to use.
Cranks. He cranks stuff out.
Well, go with whatever you like there. But yeah, it says a lot about it that you could basically put anything on this. It wouldn't really fucking matter.
Yeah, it's all about you. So one of the changes here is that now there are asymmetric powers, so each different animal has a different power, but the clincher with this is that you can't use the power on yourself, you can only use it on other people, which then means you negotiate with other people to find your way through. So there are particular paths, you need to get enough votes to be able to move up the pathway, so you've got to be able to bribe people to get those votes, and you can offer them your power in exchange. However, the only negotiation that is binding is the one for this turn right now, so you can break any deals that you do in the future.
Indeed.
I think, for me, I've not found... I think you and I got it and got involved in it, and I don't think anybody else did.
I think, like that first game, and I think I mentioned when we first played this, is that I kind of had attempted to set up those negotiations almost as a, look what we're doing, guys! This is what you can do! And ultimately, I agree with you. It's kind of, none of them have come back. I'm always presenting offers and usually winning with you because the rest of them are like
So I think this is one that will go down really well at Cabin Con, where people are much more engaged in those kind of backwards and forwards
it's one of those, definitely the table presence and the people there have a point to take on how that works.
Judge on the personalities of your group.
I think it's a fine solid game, and I quite enjoy what it's doing. I think, it's very group dependent.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute game, which means at Cabin Con it'll be 90 minutes and lots of shouting.
Oh god, you probably get about 2 hours out of that, I would have thought. Super Mega Lucky Box that I presented to everyone, which I've seen. Oh, there it is. Which I quite like, Super Mega Lucky Box. Phil Walker Harding, I want to say. I don't think it's got ever on
Then say it.
Well...
Yes.
Designer of Barron Park, amongst many other things. It's basically Bingo... on crack, I don't know. It's Bingo Plus. It's a roll and write, well, except it's not a roll and write. It's a draw a card and write.
Yep.
But it's bingo basically. You're essentially have bingo cards in front of you that you're drafted out. You pick them. They've got numbers on them with special abilities that are powered if you get rows and columns completed. You have a deck of cards that are randomised. You pull 9 cards out. Every round is 9 cards that play out random numbers that you cross off. You maybe get extra abilities from the stuff you do. At the end of it all, you score stuff. Basically, that's it. And it plays very quick.
Yep.
And it plays up to 6, I think.
Yep.
And it's great. And I really like it. And it's really hard to get hold of because of the plastic bits in it. And we won't allow it in the country because it will kill children.
Okay.
Will murder children, even though it looks like this nice sort of Sesame Street style vibe, 1970s look. It's murderous. But if you can get it, I got it from eBay for 20 quid, which seemed to steal for me actually for what's in there. Components are really good, and I quite enjoy that.
Yeah,
Super Mega Lucky Box, quick and easy done. Wingspan we played again.
Yep. Wangspin.
Wangspin, which again, as I say, I don't have an issue with it. I go, nah.
Yeah, this was what I was referring to when we talked about Kanban, that I think that kind of theme leaves you cold, and you mentioned specifically when we played this, that this theme leaves you completely cold.
That especially, I think the birdie thing Kanban I can to a point, and there's a bit of meat to it, but I think Wingspan, with it being relatively, and we haven't played any of the expansions, in your very big box that you have of this, I've only ever played the base game, so I don't know whether the expansions will add that, because it just feels a little bit pedestrian with a theme that I'm like, nah. Ultimately, I just go, meh. I don't mind it, but it feels like I could have played something else during that time.
Yeah, no, I quite enjoy it. I think it's.
I should hope you fucking do.
It's meaty, and I think it presents itself as a welcoming game to the newcomer, which I don't think it really is.
It's not that entry level.
No, but I do like the. I mean, you talked about it essentially being again another spreadsheety type game, and it kind of is in terms of the calculations that you're kind of processing of I need to get this to do that, and trying to line things up and so on and so forth. But I think it flows well, but I understand your reservations.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason it's not grabbed me, because there is stuff. I mean, the Space Bees didn't bounce off me. They're not doing anything probably more complex for each other, to be honest. But something about Space Bees and how that all worked for me. That didn't. Hey, there's plenty of games in the sea. Escape from Colditz we played.
We did.
I don't mind Escape from Colditz. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I like it. I think the thing that struck me when we first got it, so I got it a few years ago, and we've kind of played it once a year.
Yeah, it's almost like a Christmas tradition now.
Yeah,
time to escape from quarters. It's like watching The Great Escape every year.
And I think if you're looking at a game where you are rolling to move, this is probably going to be the best one that you're going to find, pretty much.
What about Talisman?
What I do think, from the first time that we played it, I thought that there's a way to turn this into it could be a deck builder, but but a deck that you're cycling through, like in Heat, for example, where you've got different cards with different movement values, and you've got to manage your hand to try to save up the right cards to then rush rather than it being in the lap of the gods.
Osprey Games did this, so this is like a republish of it, and they tweak some rules in it. It's one of those games that I think if Restoration Games had got their mitts on it, that they would have done something else, because whenever they redo these reprints of these games, they take the existing game and they do a tweak to modernise it, to bring it into our century. And I think Osprey, all they did was really very much, other than they added some refinements, very brief refinements to it, ultimately just it is a very shiny version with less swastikas. That's ultimately what we got. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. If there'd been that little bit more effort, I think actually it could be quite an interesting game with that.
If you've got 5 cards, you can only play a couple. You want to save up the right hand to be able to do that push out.
Yes.
And then the person playing the Nazis trying to stop you is having to manage the hand of, do I do this now to catch that guy? Do I hold those cards back to be able to catch that guy next time?
Yeah.
How do I balance
all
these things out?
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, Bob enjoys it.
Yes.
He's a simple creature. But I don't
enjoy it.
I enjoy it. Yeah, it's fine. It's perfectly fine for when it comes out and we play it.
Yeah.
I always get to beat the Germans because for some reasons. And you always fucking escape. Bastards. Absolute by shot.
Well, no, I think when you say you, I think you're just referring to me. I don't think anybody else. No, did Robbie get?
No, I shot him in the back.
Somebody got somebody out.
I think Bob. I think everyone ultimately got one person out, but you got 2 out.
Yeah.
But I took great relish in murdering the rest of them. But, it's fun. I don't mind. I just enjoy the journey. And that's kind of, I bottom out at that point of stuff.
Okay.
There's other stuff that I've got here that we've not played and not bought, so there seems little point to mention that.
But I've got a couple of things here. So first of all, we did squeeze this in last year.
We did.
And this was where we were talking about the Funko game before.
Yes.
This is another one, Rear Window.
Prospero Hall again.
Based on a timely version of the 1954 Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Yes.
Starring James Kelly,
very weird.
Stewart and Grace Kelly.
When it was being mentioned, I was like, really? We're in? Okay. But it works.
Yes. So it's in the, Mysterium and Dixit kind of realm of you're presenting images to people.
Yes.
And it does actually, it's another one that really does the theme of the movie well.
Yeah.
So one person is playing Alfred Hitchcock, the director, and they have different people living in 4 different apartments, and those people have characteristics, and through playing of cards over a sequence of 4 days, you have to try to clue the watchers, as they're called in the game, into who these people are in each of the apartments and what their characteristics are.
Yeah.
So it's like the old Mastermind game where you're guessing things and then trying to work out.
We got 2 right on that day.
Yeah,
so
and then we got 4. Which ones are we carrying over? Does that all match up from those days? Works really well. And it is what elements you pick up from these cards. They're all kind of artistic versions of things you might have seen in the film, stuff like that. There are powers that are related to the characters. It does really, really well with that theme. There is also the possibility that instead of there being a characteristic about one of these people, that person has committed a murder. So, if there is no murder, everybody wins together if you get all 8 things. If there has been a murder, either the director wins or the watchers win, or nobody wins.
Oh, nobody.
But you can't have everybody winning. So it adds a little element to it. So we only played this once, and I think you and I got it. Robbie got involved.
I had a lot of work that night.
Yeah.
And I tried to engage them all. I really did.
Bob was just disengaged.
He was bouncing off of every attempt I had.
One of the reasons why I particularly wanted to mention this is, so we played it on Friday, just gone, the 30th.
Yes.
No, 29th. I subsequently have played this on the 30th, the 31st and the 1st with my 8-year-old daughter.
Right.
So, having played it together, I thought, oh, this is one that she could actually join in on. She's big on mysteries and detective-y kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd play it, and she loved it and has been insisting on playing it every day. She wants to play it she finishes it and wants to play another game immediately.
Cool.
She's had her turn being the director. So you can play it with younger kids. I'm not sure what age range it says on there. If it has a suggestion. Oh, it's just 13 plus. So your mileage may vary. My 8-year-old really enjoys it. So and I really like it as well. And it is the answer I give to what's your favourite film is Rear Window. So it's ideally suited to me, but I do think it's a really, really well done game.
Yes, I agree with all what you're saying. I think it does a really good job of catching the theme of the movie. I think it does a good job of that Mysterium, Bixie vibey game. There's enough different mechanisms going on there and a different vibe to it. It all works. It's a sweet little deal. Again, I think it's hard to get hold of at the moment because I think it was available and now it's not.
So that was in Waterstones just before Christmas. Right. That's where that copy was bought, and I was given it at Christmas.
Well, there you go.
So that might be the place to look. The next thing I brought along was Undaunted Battle of Britain.
The Undaunted games.
So
two
this
players,
is
aren't they?
Yes, they are 2 players. Although there are Board Game Geek suggestions as to how you can play it with 4 and things like that. So Battle of Britain, the first one that's not based around the armies on the ground, but so instead it's being fought over the coastlines of France and Belgium and Britain. And it's interesting. This is the only Undaunted I've played.
I've never played them. I hear great things about them. But yes, I've not actually played them.
The difficulty obviously being that we don't normally play games as 2s.
No, this is my problem.
So what I found in playing through is that it's quite... Because they're planes with armies, you can get them to stop somewhere, and you can hunker down and fight and stuff like that. I'm reading into how the other games might play. With this, your planes are constantly having to move. If you're activating a plane, it's moving, and so trying to line somebody up for shots is quite tricky.
Like dogfighting.
Yeah. So I think that there is going to be real skill that unveils itself in playing this in terms of working out how best to get shots on people. And I think there are 11 different scenarios in there, and they set it up so you can play it as a campaign if you want to. One person always playing the Nazis, one person always playing the RAF, with like bombing raids in there. It's not just the dogfighting. There's all sorts of stuff like that. So I think it would be really interesting to play it as kind of a mini campaign, and each side learning as you go as to how best to manoeuvre these planes. Different planes have different kind of speeds and manoeuvrability and things like that. So an interesting game, one that I look forward to playing properly in 2024.
Yeah, I have a similar thing to that, which we started playing on Sundays, and we haven't played for a little while, which is the War of the Ring card game, which is Lord of the Rings down there, actually. It's right in those boxes, can't be able to drag it out. That is 4 decks of cards. It ideally seems sweet sort out 4 players, and that you've each got a faction you're controlling that all kind of... The 2 guys are good, 2 guys are bad, so there is some crossover, but you don't communicate. So it's kind of you're playing and taking areas on the maps, and there's this synergy there. Yet I've yet to really discover there's quite a bit going on.
Right.
I like that sort of asynchronicity sort of powers thing happening. It's a similar thing.
Yeah. And then the last thing I brought along is Lacuna.
Lacuna, which apparently my wife likes.
Yes. Mrs. Des Rolls
yes.
has enjoyed this game. Mike has only seen it, not played it so far. But it is a 10-minute game with like a 1-minute teach, and it looks very, very pretty. And Mike is going to get some shots of that to superimpose, hopefully,
over this. Yes, it's pretty. It's on the tablecloth.
Yes. Highly recommended as a little game, and certainly one that non-gamers can easily pick up and play.
Yes.
You'll be able to get it to the table with anybody, and people will stop. And I had this when I played it at the Board Game Cafe. People walking past were stopping. Oh, what's that? That looks very nice. It does
present as not really good table presence. I mean, the only thing I said to her that I dig up and play, and now I can't see it, I had it up, was Andy Hopwood's Mindleaf, which is again a 2-player game. That's tiles more than that. It's not as aesthetically pleasing as that, though. He himself, I don't know where I was going with that. He plays with his wood and creates these wonderful bespoke bits of wood that you can play with. It's a good game. I had it out at one point, and now I can't see it for the life of me. It was on the table, and lost it. So dog's probably eaten it, probably. But yeah, that's another one that I quite like. But I tempted maybe pick that up because she might play it.
So the other thing that we haven't talked about that I'm sure was 2023 was Twilight Inscription.
Yes.
A bit of a year of roll and writes, one way or another. There has been. It seems to have been, after the big spurt of legacy games that we had when that became a craze.
Yes.
Roll and writes are now going big. And yeah, I really enjoyed this.
I'm the fence because Twilight Imperium was a game I love. You've never played it, and I don't know if we ever will, because it's just a behemoth. But this is, I think, is a nice. It gives you a taster of it in a roll and write theme. I mean, it isn't Twilight Imperium. It never could be, but I think giving you an epic roll and write and giving you a bit more strategy and a bit more interaction, a bit more going on, and a bit of story to it, it does all that.
I mean, it is a full night's game.
Yes.
So I think people, when they think of roll and writes, will think of something like
I think more like
that.
This is,
which
in my
will be,
opinion, is what I want out of a roll and write most
so
of the time.
a 20-minute game.
Yes, that's
that
what
kind of thing.
I think roll and write. I think it should be that.
And this is what, a 2.5, 3 hour game.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, it's quite engaging. 90 to 120 minutes. It does say in the back. It plays up to 8. Maybe it's something you can take to Cabin play for a month. But yeah, I'll bring it. I'll keep bringing it because it's relatively quick to grok, sort of. But it's then just the complexity comes as you kind of dive into it. But yeah, I've not played it nearly enough, and I've yet to fail to get it to the table on a Sunday because Jamie's very opposed to roll and writes. Seems to have some sort of just like doesn't. So this,
can he not write?
Maybe this could be something to do with it. He's not engaged at any point with party games and roll and writes. It's really hard work. But I really thought, with this being the Twilight Imperium vibe, which he loves Twilight Imperium, so maybe I can get it to table in the year ahead. 2024 maybe will be our year. But yes, I quite enjoy that. Unopposed to that, I will say, Richard is from the Facebook group watches this. He's going to catch this. He's going to get angry because I'm sure he was the one who was on about Rolling Realms, about how it's amazing and they should. Everyone was buying for a while on Rolling Realms. I fucking hate Rolling Realms. Again, in my opinion, it does everything wrong with what I want for a roll and write, because every fucking round you pull a different card, more complexity, then you spend 10 minutes explaining what the fuck is going on, then you do it, and then someone gets it wrong, and then you pull another card and do the whole fucking thing again.
So I picked it up for about £8 on Amazon.
I've been tempted.
That was that was the only reason, because it was going so cheap. I can see kind of how, as a game designer, it's a nice little challenge. Can I make a little card game, around the thing?
Not only that, I think he's laughing all the way to the bank, because I've seen people post, and if Richard, it wasn't you, I apologise if it wasn't, but there's someone who spent like £100 on the game and all the packs.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ.
It's
not £100. No. If it's your jam, then fine.
I mean, I got it played at CabanCon. I think it was the last game I played at CabanCon this year, before I had to come home, and I think people were a little more enthusiastic there, but there were still, lots of experienced gamers who they're not the Bobs and Robbies of this world.
No.
And there were still people who were marking things down wrong because...
Well, I was struggling with it.
Yeah.
Because especially late in the day we played it, but ultimately, it was offering a level of complexity and thing that when I go into roll and write, I want it. I like the pinball game was fun. You had the pinball game.
Yep.
We enjoyed that. Again, relatively easier.
That was the other one on my list that I hadn't mentioned.
Well, there you go. All right, try to let Ascription apart, because that is a bit involved, but Super Mega Lucky Box is definitely one that is more what I expect out of a basics roll and write, is that. Real simple, fun, easy, just get on with it.
I think Super Skill Pinball, which just mentioned, that I really quite liked, but it's a solitaire game. Yes, you're all playing at the same time, but you're all doing your own thing. You're not paying attention to what anybody else is doing at all, and also if you do well, it ends up feeling like it's dragging on, and other people get knocked out because they've lost their balls because they've not played it as well as you have, and you just keep going and going and going. Yeah,
and it kind of rolls a bit longer than you want it to, and you go, ultimately, has this been fulfilling? No. Which again, sweet spot with Lucky Box, because it hits the table, does its business, and then fucks off, and doesn't outstay its welcome. I think you either do this and just go balls deep, and just go all evening, or that in the middle, annoying. So favourite best play, what's for you is your
that Frostpunk game that I talked about, we had at CabanCon. It was just a unique experience at the gaming table for me. And it was also, I can see on your list, is surprise as well. I think Frostpunk was the best surprise of the year. I backed it kind of on a whim, an expensive whim. And not being particularly familiar with the...
I was surprised you backed it, because knowing how thematic a game it was probably going to be,
No,
that's not front and centre when I think of you of a game as a thematic game.
But I wanted to branch out and get games. I think now, generally speaking, I want to try and get games that I don't have anything like in my collection already. And so that was one of the reasons. I like the models that come with it. To be honest, it's got a really nice big model in the middle of the table. It's got real table presence with it. And I'm really pleasantly surprised by just how involved I got in that story that it told when we played.
I would quite happily play it again. I appreciate it presents a table time thing. For me, I don't know, because I'm going to try and limit this to the Friday nights. I really enjoyed Scarface. I haven't really played enough of it for me to really grasp it. I mean, April from the Friday nights really jumped out to me because I picked one up. I think it came as a surprise, and I really enjoyed what it was doing. Feels like a dull choice in comparison to the other stuff we've done.
Well, I suppose the duller choice for Surprise of the Year is Scout. We talked about how much we played it.
I suppose Scout really probably trumps all of that, because I think Scout has seen... I bought it straight after you played it. Played it a lot. I've played it a massive amount. We've played it on Fridays a lot. You've obviously played it. Tony picked it up. He's played a lot, I think, just as a surprising thing. So, yeah. And the worst, we've touched on yours.
Yep.
I think it's probably mine as well, actually, to be fair to you, because it just was fucking hard work, a chore, ultimately, and going, oh God. So yeah, I think Weather Machine probably from the Friday night evenings is, of all the stuff we played, it's just not ultimately very enjoyable. So that was it. That was kind of it. That was our Minor Ben's take on the Friday night's gaming, and some highs and lows. I think we all agree, and that's what was quite the journey, wasn't it? There was more to come on this video of us looking forward to the year ahead. Number one, it's not here because this video would be going on for an extra hour or so, and secondly, actually the battery went out of the camera and we missed half the recording of it, so that is mostly lost to time and space. I'll have a look what I can salvage of that, and I think at this point, as we're now kind of tunneling away towards March, that it's probably unlikely to get filmed again. I was hoping to catch up with the Sunday crew and do similarly. That has not yet occurred, between sickness, illness, just getting your schedules in a line. It's not happened. Whether that will, I don't know. It would be nice to do, but at least you have this to look upon these wonders and weep. Thank you, as always, for liking, sharing, subscribing, and all that stuff. And continue doing that. I hope this is enjoyable. Let me know. I know it's long. I'm sorry. Long videos no one likes, but it's long. I could have cut it into bits, but it would have just been short, long video. I don't know. That's me done. Onwards to 2024. That we're already in. Let's crack on with that. See you later. Bye-bye.